Good morning. Shalom Aleichem. So, what can I say? It's raining again in Boston. I don't know where you guys are out there, but it's okay. We got this. We're dealing with it.
Pray for
Yeah. So, this week's portion, there's an unsung hero. He plays a major role in this parsha, in this portion, in this narrative, in this episode story, and yet it's easy to overlook his contribution, his role. And it's Eliezer that I'm speaking of. And it's highly apropos to talk about Eliezer this week, coming in advance of the International Conference of Chabad Shluchim. Just a quick Hebrew freshener. Shliach. What is a Shliach? So it's a Hebrew term that's come to be synonymous with a Chabad rabbi. So, but if you look up Shliach in a Hebrew English dictionary, you won't find, or Wikipedia, you won't find a picture of a Chabad rabbi there. You might at this point. It's a legal term in Jewish halachic jurisprudence of an emissary and an agent who is entrusted with executing an action, a task, a mission on behalf of someone else, an extension of someone else's presence, a surrogate who is acting as a proxy. And there were all different Talmudic and religious halachic aspects of this phenomenon. First and foremost, or front and center, was the question of the role of the agent, of the Shliach. To what extent, and the burning question is, to what extent does the agent represent the person that has tasked him with a certain task? Am I here as simply a representative, or am I here as an extension of someone, in lieu of? And in Jewish law, the answer is quite clear. The halachic statement, which determines the reality, is summed up in a few very powerful words. Shliach shel Adam kamoso. The representative of a person is a duplicate of the person. Is the other person. So it's actually quite an intelligent principle in the way that it instills the emissary, the agent, with a higher urgency, a seriousness to the whole proceedings. You know, we think of messengers today. If you live in the city, you think of those guys on the bikes, you know, hurtling at breakneck speeds through traffic with their bags and, you know, pausing for a second long enough to throw a package through the front door. The shliach is not a messenger, a bike messenger. The shliach is not merely delivering a message. The shliach, to a large extent, becomes the message, is the message. Mm-hmm. And you have to take it serious. If you are invested with that level of responsibility, with that level of representation. And so Eliezer's the first real bona fide shliach, and Abraham is the first mishaleach, the first one who publicly and in a high-profile way subcontracts something of vital importance to another, setting a precedent and laying out a format. So in many ways, Avram Avinu, Abraham, our father, was also Abraham, our Rabbi.
Right.
Setting the precedent for creating a culture of trust, of supreme trust as part of the fabric of a authentically Jewish experience. And the reason that I say that this is a precedent, it's not just that he hired someone to go take care of something for him. This was not just any task. This was everything. This was high stakes. This was Jewish continuity before there was even really a Jewish entity. So at the founding, at the kind of the moments before the Constitution was written or conceived and delivered, the founding fathers were already anticipating the next steps. How do we, once we launch this movement, this ethos, this way of life, this calling into the world, how do we preserve it? How do we guarantee its continuity and its relevance, and that it remains robust and fit? It remains transferable. How do we ensure that? And so Isaac is the key, because Isaac is the next generation. Isaac was the first Jew to be born Jewish. Abraham really came to it on his own. So in many ways, Abraham was simultaneously the first Jew and also the first convert to Judaism. But Isaac was born after Abraham's epiphanous moment with God. And so the key here is, how do we invest everything that we've developed, understood, into the next generation? It's a burning question of today. And that might be part of the complexity of the Akedah, lies precisely in the paradox of being asked to sacrifice the only hope of the continuity of that which is just barely being launched, just getting off the ground. The only way to ensure that this message keeps getting heard is for Isaac to be out there, but not if he's not alive, which was part of the mysteriousness and the lack of strategic thinking in the very notion of Isaac no longer being there. And so you would think that Abraham would saddle up for this important task, finding a wife for his son, which is really code for ensuring the very future of the Jewish people. Instead, he makes a choice to task Eliezer. And in doing so, he makes a statement about the central role of trust in the continuity of that which is at the center of our lives. Oftentimes, because something is so valuable, because something is so precious, because something is so priceless, we hoard the responsibilities associated with its vitality. And we are incapable of being inclusive, of broadening the scope and the reach of whatever it is that is precious to us, and because we don't trust anybody. But in doing so, we are, unbeknownst to us, we are eating away at the very thing we're trying to preserve. Because we are shrinking it in the ways that we protect it. As a result, and this comes at the cost of our inability to trust And so, there's a word for it, it's called a control freak. Control freaks lose, always. It's just a matter of time. You never win if you're a control freak, because everybody just slips away. Everybody slips away, and everything just is loosened. And so Abraham, the first Jew, the first 3.0 Rebbe,
That's right.
as part of his mandate, as part of his setting up the platform and the protocol for the continuity of Judaism, builds right into the center of it, the notion of agency, of shlichus. At the heart of Judaism, even as a prerequisite to Judaism, before there's even a Torah, before there's even a Shulchan Aruch, before there's even Talmud or 5 books of Moses, there's shlichus. There's agency, there's trust. There's the notion that there is a structure, there is a procedure whereby which we can work really hard to develop something and know that we have a pipeline, we have a vehicle to move it forward to wherever it needs to go, in whatever form it needs to get there, whatever transport is necessary. It's like all of the ways that many nonprofits, they sit there and try and figure out how to create funding for the next generation. And endowment funds, right? So shlichus, in many ways, is the equivalent of the endowment fund of the nonprofit. Because if the process, the tool, the vehicle of shlichus is in place, then we have that assurance of this message existing in perpetuity. And that's key. And so Eliezer is not just taking care, he's not just a butler. He's as vital to the fleshing out of this picture, of this enterprise that will be known as Judaism, as Abraham or Isaac. He's the link. He's the bridge between the Shliach is the bridge between one era and another. We talk about moving Judaism from midor lidor, right? The Shliach stands at the crossroads of multiple generations and functions as a bridge, not as a way of exaggerating that divide, but by imaginatively narrowing it and finding the commonalities and finding the ways that yesterday and the day before yesterday still bears deep relevance to today and tomorrow. So there's an energy of shlichus this week that is contagious, that is exhilarating, because being tasked by Abraham to take care of Isaac, as if you were Abraham yourself, is nothing short of the highest and deepest manifestation of purposefulness that one could ever hope for. And it is a mechanism that injects a seriousness to the task at hand that is real, that accounts for a turbocharged version of it that has us shluchim, fully adrenalized to execute what the task that we've been tasked with. The Rebbe was our Avraham. And next Shabbos, over 5,000 little mini Rebbes are going to be gathered together talking about their challenges, talking about their experiences, some being in the twilight zone with Abraham on one side and Isaac on the other, and how that feels. And so it's a Shabbos that gives all of us, everyone, whether one is a formal Shliach of the Chabad movement, or whether one is like every person, the Shliach of their life, the emissary of their life, because everybody has agency. Everyone, if given a little mindfulness, everyone is entrusted with something. There's an Abraham in everyone's life that asks us to, whether directly or indirectly, that gives us the responsibility to look after the Isaacs. And we all have that in one way, shape, or form. And if we take that seriously, then we have the outlines of purpose that sweetens life immeasurably. Yom Tov.
Yom Tov.